Hello and welcome to today's deep dive into one of antiquity's most compelling and fierce figures, Tomyris. In this video, we journey back more than 2,500 years to explore the life, battles, and enduring legacy of the Queen of the Massagetae, a nomadic people of the Eurasian steppes. Tomyris's name is forever linked to her legendary confrontation with Cyrus the Great of Persia, a clash that has resonated throughout history as a symbol of resistance against imperial conquest. Before we delve into the details, let's set the stage. Imagine a world where vast empires were on the rise, where cultures clashed at the boundaries between sedentary civilizations and the nomadic tribes roaming the endless grasslands. In this milieu, Tomyris emerged not just as a military leader, but as a guardian of her people's way of life. Her story, recorded by ancient historians such as Herodotus, is steeped in both fact and myth, an epic tale of defiance, honor, and the high cost of empire building. Throughout this video, we will cover the historical context of the steppes and the peoples who inhabited them, Tomyris's rise to power as Queen of the Massagetae, the dramatic confrontation with Cyrus, including the legendary battle that ended in the downfall of the Persian conqueror, the aftermath of the conflict, and how Tomyris's legacy has been interpreted over the centuries. And finally, what her story means in the modern world, particularly as a symbol of female strength and resistance. So sit back, relax, and prepare to step into a world where the clash of swords and wills shaped the course of history. To truly appreciate Tomyris, we must first understand the world from which she came. The vast steppes of Central Asia were not the barren wastelands many imagine today, but vibrant regions inhabited by a mosaic of nomadic tribes. Among these peoples were the Massagetae, a branch of the broader Scythian group known for their equestrian skills, fierce combat abilities, and deep-rooted cultural traditions that celebrated freedom and martial prowess. The nomadic lifestyle meant that these tribes moved with the seasons, following herds and taking advantage of the open, unbounded terrain. Their social organization was typically tribal and clan-based, where leadership was often earned through valor in battle and wisdom in council. The Massagetae in particular maintained traditions that emphasized honor, hospitality, and an unyielding spirit of independence, qualities that would later be exemplified by Tomyris herself. Visualize endless rolling grasslands under a vast sky, dotted with encampments and the rhythmic sound of hooves. This was the backdrop of Tomyris's youth, a life shaped by nature's raw power and the constant challenge of defending one's territory. In such an environment, survival depended not only on the strength of one's arm, but also on an intimate understanding of the land and its ever-changing moods. The cultural heritage of the Massagetae was passed down through oral traditions, epic poems, and the rituals of their nomadic lifestyle. Their stories, much like the landscapes they roamed, were wild and untamed, filled with heroes, battles, and the eternal struggle against external forces that threatened their way of life. It is within this rich cultural tapestry that Tomyris would rise to prominence, embodying both the beauty and the brutality of her world. The details of Tomyris's early life remain shrouded in the mists of antiquity. What we do know is that she was born into a society where strength, courage, and tactical skill were not only prized but necessary for survival. As a member of the ruling elite, Tomyris likely received training in both the art of warfare and the intricate politics of her people. In many ancient cultures, including those of the steppes, women of noble birth were not exempt from martial training. In fact, legends from across the nomadic world often feature formidable female warriors, a testament to the egalitarian aspects of these societies. By the time she assumed the mantle of leadership, Tomyris had already earned a reputation as a warrior of uncommon skill and determination. Her ascent to power was marked by her decisive actions on the battlefield, her shrewd political acumen, and her unwavering commitment to protect her people. As queen, she not only commanded respect among her own tribes, but also established herself as a guardian against the encroachments of expanding empires. It is said that Tomyris understood that the survival of her people depended on more than just military might. It required a deep understanding of diplomacy and an unbreakable will to resist domination. In a world where empires like Persia were rapidly expanding, Tomyris became the symbol of resistance, rallying her people to preserve their independence at all costs. During this time, the steppes were undergoing significant changes. With the rise of centralized empires to the south, such as the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great, the balance of power was shifting. For nomadic tribes like the Massagetae, the encroachment of settled bureaucratic states represented a fundamental threat to their way of life. The tension was palpable, and leaders like Tomyris knew that conflict was inevitable. Her resolve was not born solely out of a desire for conquest, but was rooted in the deep conviction that the freedom and traditions of her people must be preserved at any cost. The stories passed down through generations speak of Tomyris's indomitable spirit, her willingness to face overwhelming odds, and her keen sense of justice. While ancient sources may differ in details, the core narrative remains clear. Tomyris was a leader who embodied both the ferocity and the honor of her people, prepared to confront any threat, no matter how mighty. While the steppes and their nomadic tribes continued their age-old traditions, far to the south a new power was emerging, one that would soon set its sights on the lands beyond its borders. Cyrus the Great, the founder of the Persian Empire, was a visionary leader whose ambition and military genius transformed a collection of disparate tribes into one of the ancient world's most formidable empires. Cyrus's conquests were characterized by a blend of military prowess, shrewd diplomacy, and at times ruthless ambition. His campaign against the Massagetae was part of his broader strategy to extend Persian influence and secure the empire's frontiers. For Cyrus, the nomadic tribes of Central Asia represented both a strategic target and an ideological challenge, a test of the empire's reach into the untamed world. The historical accounts of Cyrus's encounter with Tomyris vary in their details. According to the ancient historian Herodotus, Cyrus sought to subdue the Massagetae by initially employing diplomacy and deception. He reportedly sent envoys bearing gifts and promises, attempting to lure the nomadic queen into a trap. However, Tomyris, ever perceptive and wary of the Persian ruler's ambitions, refused these overtures. She saw through the facade of Persian benevolence and recognized the danger lurking behind Cyrus's generous offers. As tensions escalated, the inevitable clash between the two forces loomed on the horizon. For Cyrus, the campaign was not merely a military expedition, it was a statement of Persian power and destiny. For Tomyris, it was a defensive stand to protect her people's freedom and way of life. The confrontation that followed would become one of the most legendary episodes in ancient military history, a battle where strategy, valor, and the unyielding will to resist collided with the ambitions of a burgeoning empire. In the months leading up to the confrontation, both sides prepared meticulously. Cyrus marshaled his forces, confident in his ability to bring even the most remote peoples under his control. His army was well-equipped, disciplined, and driven by the momentum of Persia's rapid expansion. On the other hand, Tomyris relied on the deep knowledge of the land, unconventional tactics suited to the open terrain, and the fierce loyalty of a people whose way of life was at stake. The stage was set for a clash that would not only determine the fate of the Massagetae, but also send shockwaves throughout the ancient world. In the next section, we will delve into the details of this fateful encounter, exploring how the battle unfolded and the dramatic circumstances that led to one of history's most memorable military reversals. The confrontation between the forces of Cyrus and the warriors of the Massagetae is one of those epic moments in history that has grown larger than life over the centuries. According to Herodotus, after the initial diplomatic overtures failed, Cyrus resorted to a full-scale invasion. His army, confident in its superior numbers and organization, marched into the territory of the Massagetae with the expectation of a swift victory. Tomyris, however, was prepared. She had spent countless hours preparing her people not just in the art of warfare, but in the unity and determination needed to resist an empire. As the two forces met on the battlefields of the steppes, the clash was fierce and unforgiving. Cyrus's well-drilled soldiers found themselves contending with an enemy who fought not merely for land, but for their very identity. The battle is remembered for its intensity and for the dramatic twist that would alter the course of history. According to the legend, during the combat, Cyrus was drawn into the melee. Some accounts suggest that the Persian general was isolated from his main forces, while others claim that he was lured into a trap by Tomyris's cunning strategy. Regardless of the precise details, what is clear is that in the ensuing confrontation, Cyrus's forces were thrown into disarray. In the melee, Tomyris's tactical brilliance shone through. Utilizing the mobility of her cavalry and the intimate knowledge of the local terrain, she orchestrated a series of maneuvers that gradually isolated key elements of the Persian army. The result was chaos among the ranks of Cyrus's troops, undermining the very discipline that had powered their previous successes. In the midst of this chaos, Cyrus himself was caught in the vortex of battle. Herodotus recounts that after his capture, Cyrus met his end at the hands of Tomyris's warriors, a dramatic reversal for a ruler who had seemed almost invincible. In one of the more grisly episodes of the battle's aftermath, Tomyris is said to have retrieved the body of Cyrus, and in a symbolic act of retribution, had it decapitated and submerged in a container of blood. This vivid imagery was not simply an act of vengeance. It was a statement that no ruler, however powerful, was above the justice meted out by those defending their freedom. Modern historians debate the precise details of the battle and even question some of the more fantastical elements of the narrative. Yet, regardless of historical uncertainties, the core story endures, a powerful testament to the clash between imperial ambition and the unyielding will of a people determined to remain free. Tomyris's leadership in the face of overwhelming odds remains a stirring example of how strategy, resolve, and cultural identity can triumph over brute military force. The battle did more than secure the independence of the Massagetae. It also sent a resounding message to the ancient world. Even the mightiest empire could be challenged by those who refused to be subdued. The defeat of Cyrus was not only a military setback for Persia, but also a symbolic blow to the notion of unstoppable imperial expansion. In the pages of history, Tomyris emerged as both a defender of her people and a symbol of the indomitable spirit of resistance, a legacy that continues to inspire those who value freedom and sovereignty. In the immediate wake of the battle, the landscape of power in the region shifted. The victory of the Massagetae under Tomyris's command halted Persian expansion in that direction for a time, and reinforced the notion that the nomadic tribes of the steppes were formidable foes, not easily subdued by even the most advanced military powers of the era. For Tomyris and her people, the victory was a reaffirmation of their way of life. It underscored the importance of their traditions, their deep connection to the land, and the values that had been passed down through generations. In a world where empires were built on conquest and subjugation, the story of Tomyris stands as a reminder that there are forces in history that cannot be measured solely by the size of an army or the wealth of a treasury. Instead, it is the strength of conviction and the courage to defend one's identity that can change the course of events. In the centuries that followed, Tomyris became an emblematic figure in the cultural memory of many civilizations. Her story was passed along by historians and poets alike, each retelling adding layers of myth and symbolism. In the Greek tradition, she was portrayed as the ultimate counterpoint to the imperial ambitions of Cyrus, a fierce, independent queen who would rather die than see her people subjugated. Her legacy, however, transcends any single cultural narrative. Across different eras and regions, Tomyris has been reimagined as a symbol of resistance against tyranny and an icon of female empowerment. For many, her defiance in the face of overwhelming odds is a timeless reminder that even the smallest force can challenge the mightiest empire when fueled by the fires of determination and honor. Yet her story also invites us to consider the nature of historical memory. How much of what we know about Tomyris is rooted in fact, and how much has been amplified by centuries of storytelling? Modern scholars continue to debate the details of her life in the battle with Cyrus. Archaeological evidence is sparse, and the primary accounts, most notably those by Herodotus, blend historical reporting with legend. This intersection of myth and history only adds to the allure of Tomyris's narrative, making her an enduring figure whose story can be reinterpreted in myriad ways. In today's world, where discussions about leadership, identity, and resistance continue to be fiercely debated, Tomyris offers an ancient yet remarkably modern lesson: that the courage to stand up against injustice and oppression is a quality as valuable now as it was in antiquity. One of the enduring challenges in recounting the story of Tomyris is disentangling the layers of myth from historical fact. Ancient sources such as Herodotus provide us with a vivid, if sometimes embellished, account of her life and battles. Over the centuries, these accounts have evolved, taking on symbolic dimensions that often reflect the values and prejudices of their own times. Some scholars argue that the more fantastical elements of Tomyris's story, the dramatic decapitation of Cyrus's corpse and the poetic justice that follows, should be seen as allegorical rather than strictly historical. They suggest that these stories served as a form of moral instruction for ancient audiences, warning rulers of the inevitable retribution that awaits those who overreach their power. Others contend that while the details may have been embellished, the core of the narrative, the fierce resistance of the Massagetae and the decisive leadership of Tomyris, reflects a genuine historical episode. Even if we accept that some of the dramatic flourishes were added later, the underlying truth remains. A determined leader once rallied her people against a formidable adversary and secured a victory that reverberated through history. This duality between myth and history is not uncommon in the ancient world. Many figures, from Alexander the Great to Joan of Arc, are shrouded in legends that blur the lines between fact and fiction. What sets Tomyris apart, however, is the way her story has been embraced across cultures and eras, an embodiment of resistance that transcends the specific details of any one battle. As modern historians continue to study the steppes and the peoples who inhabited them, new interpretations and discoveries may yet shed additional light on the true nature of Tomyris's reign. For now, her legend remains a powerful reminder of the complexity of history, where the boundaries between reality and myth are as fluid as the winds that sweep across the endless grasslands. In our modern age, the story of Tomyris has found renewed resonance. She is frequently cited in discussions about leadership, resistance, and the role of women in history. In literature, film, and even political rhetoric, Tomyris's image is invoked as a symbol of uncompromising strength and the willingness to fight for what one believes in. Artists and writers have reimagined her story, often emphasizing the dramatic elements of her encounter with Cyrus to highlight themes of vengeance and justice. Her tale has also become an inspiration in feminist discourses, a historical narrative where a woman not only held power in a male-dominated world, but also decisively turned the tide against a mighty empire. In a time when stories of strong women leaders are especially cherished, Tomyris's legend provides a counterpoint to narratives that often sideline female voices in the annals of history. From graphic novels to documentaries, her legacy continues to evolve, challenging us to consider how history is recorded and remembered. Modern scholarship and popular culture alike invite us to see beyond the myths and understand the human qualities that made Tomyris a formidable leader, a woman of extraordinary resolve, intellect, and courage. As we bring this exploration of Tomyris to a close, we are left with a story that is as inspiring as it is enigmatic. Whether viewed through the lens of history, myth, or modern cultural critique, Tomyris remains a symbol of resistance, a champion of freedom, and a reminder that the fight for one's identity is timeless. Her legacy endures not simply because of a single battle or a dramatic act of vengeance, but because her story speaks to the universal struggle against oppression. In an era defined by rapid change and often overwhelming global forces, the spirit of Tomyris offers a beacon of hope, a call to defend our values, our communities, and our way of life with unwavering resolve. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of one of history's most formidable warrior queens. May the courage of Tomyris inspire you to stand up for what you believe in, no matter the odds.